Welcome into a new edition of the Going Deep podcast. Today, we're going to break down the Dolphins game. What's going to happen this week? How's Tua going to react? The snow, 100 degrees colder in Western New York than it was on the sidelines in Miami. We're going to get all into that and more. Some signings, some updates, and some news right back with you here on the Going Deep podcast from the Cover One Network.
Josh Allen looking deep, going deep.
To me, talking about the Bills, what else would you rather be doing?
We're hoping to add a new dimension to the Cover One Network.
Slings it deep downfield, and it's caught inside the 20.
Right now, I just want to talk about this championship level. I've never had a championship caliber team to talk about.
I want to focus more on the storylines each week. What are the big stories going on with the Bills? What are thoughts, commentary? How do these things impact Buffalo?
Deep drop. Deep throw, and it is hauled in for the touchdown.
Allen deep to the end zone and caught for a touchdown.
Play action. Allen. Deep downfield, wide open.
Wow, there's a lot to get into, Mike, and such little time. As always, Kevin here with Mike to talk Dolphins, maybe talk a little bit about that crazy environment. Mike was there for the first home game in a month against the Jets. So maybe we'll have a little bit to talk about in the Jets game as well. But we're focusing on the Dolphins. We're focusing on the Dolphins also losing to the Chargers in a really disappointing fashion. If you're a Dolphins fan, they look pretty poor in that as well. So lots to break down. A lot of rumblings last night about Cole Beasley. That came to fruition today, being true. Signing on the practice squad for now, and we'll see what happens with there. Bringing the band back together, get out there. I have a giveaway going for a signed Cole Beasley photo as well as a large signed John Brown photo. Retweet that for a chance to win. Want to give it away on my show here, Mike. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's been quite the last 24 to 48 hours in Bills land on and off the field with what's been going on. We're not going to go into some of it, but a lot to talk to today about Cole Beasley, Miami week, and then maybe a little bit of a recap going on with the Jets.
As always, Dolphins week, want to break it in. No Dolphins guest today. I really haven't found a good one that I like having on the show. I'm just going to be honest. I found some fan type of people that aren't great, and I just haven't found the right analyst that I'd like to be in a mix on our show, Mike. So going to be up to us today to kind of alleviate and kind of get to the game of week 3. Back the 2-point loss after a safety. The Bills almost came back and won that game. We're not unable to get it done. I've tweeted many times about the environment there. I know you're not a big fan of the weather, but it is going to be drastically different. 120 degrees on the sidelines compared to 20 degrees on the sidelines, and maybe even colder based on the wind chill and snow and other factors that would be happening this weekend. And then I saw the Sunday Night Football Twitter account actually get down on the weather comprehension like 3 hours after I did. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So at first glance, Mike, how are you feeling about this game going? Just general feeling about the game going in. Are they're coming in off of a losing streak, their first losing streak, 2-game losing streak. The Bills are coming in off with Tua. The Bills are coming in with a winning streak of 4 games. Does that stuff matter to you? Are you glad it's at home in that environment? We saw the lackluster performance in the weather last weekend, but during that crazy rain sleet. But I'm a little bit more comfortable with the snow. How are you feeling about this game in total?
I'm irrationally confident right now. I actually feel much better about this game than I did about the Jets game because I don't think Miami really is capable of slowing down the Bills when they're ticking properly. I know weather might impact a few things on Saturday night, but if the weather does play a role, it's hard for me to think the Dolphins will do anything offensively just because of their limitations to begin with. One of those where, yes, the Bills offense doesn't play well in poor weather, but you still have a quarterback that can sling it in any condition. While Tua, you add some wind, you add some snow, that's really going to limit what Miami can bring to the table. They'll have to start relying on the run game, and that's really not something that's been great for them this year. So if Miami has to rely on the run and their timing is off with their intermediate passing game, I don't know how Miami is going to put up points, especially when in recent weeks San Fran has been able to get to Tua and kind of make him off the mark with his throws. And then the Chargers found a way to take away the middle of the field, and you saw Tua hesitant on the throws to the outside. So I feel like San Fran and LA have given the Bills a little bit of a cheat code going into Saturday night. And then you look at how the Bills defense has recently done the last 2 weeks. That gives me a bunch of confidence. The line being 7.5 points gives me confidence because I always trust Vegas more than I trust myself. And if I have something counter to Vegas, I'm thinking, what am I missing? Vegas and me seem to be seeing this the same way right now. So I do have a little bit of that irrational confidence. And to be completely honest, I don't think the Bills have played incredible football the last 4 weeks, and they're 4-0 in that stretch. But what I do think is they're starting to handle adversity better and starting to play that style of playoff football where you just find a way to grind through these games, get that W. And the way they're playing now actually gives me more confidence heading into January and February than if they were just killing teams on a weekly basis.
And what's interesting now is the Bills actually dropped to 2 in DVOA rankings for the first time in majority of the season.
Barely.
Huh? Yeah, slightly
Barely.
by 0.1%, total DVOA percentage. They are down to 2. Weighted DVOA, they're at 3. So they're, weighting in a couple of other additional factors. But in the total DVOA, they're number 2. And both teams are much above the rest of the league. They have double the DVOA percentage that Kansas City has and triple that of Miami. So there's really a top 7 per DVOA. They feel there's a top 7 now, kind of separating itself. Philly, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas, Baltimore, believe it or not, Cincinnati, Kansas City. Outside of that, you have a middle tier of Miami, the Jets, and like the Seahawks, Lions, really. They're all kind of in that middle. So Dolphins are closer to that Seattle, Detroit, Jets combo than they are Kansas City in the top echelon of teams. So that's first and foremost an interesting note. Miami's defense is DVOA 17, 31st special teams, which, could rear its head in the snow. So we'll see how that looks this weekend. But right now, the metrics, do have Miami 8th, but a good gap. But you wouldn't think so, but a big gap between 7 and 8. 7's Kansas City and 8 is Miami. But they're way closer to, like I said, the Jets, Seattle, Detroit than they are Baltimore, Cincy, KC, Dallas, San Fran, Buffalo, etc. So, the metrics would point to that line being accurate per Vegas at the 7.5 point mark. That looks about right. And, Miami's future schedules, they still have a lot of work to do, especially if they can't get it done in Buffalo. They still have some work to do. So that last game of the year against the Jets isn't a play-in game for the playoffs. So they still have their own work to do here going forward to make sure that they're in position.
It's not even a guarantee they'll make the playoffs.
Not yet. It isn't. No, now a win for them this weekend, they're in. They're pretty much in.
If they lose to Buffalo, if they lose to the Bills this weekend, you're sitting on a 3-game losing streak. You still have
you've lost to all the wild card teams.
You still have the Patriots left. The New England is not a gimme for Miami, especially if the Patriots defense comes to play. So things went from really rosy to pretty scary for the Dolphins quickly. You don't see them, their fan base on Twitter now, pointing to the standings in the AFC East anymore. That's not something that they're having fun pointing to. When they were tied with the Bills for first place for a couple of weeks, they were enjoying the trash talk. Well, the trash talk is gone now that they had a couple difficult opponents, and they're no longer playing teams with the bottom third in the league in DVOA defense, where they can just easily exploit on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Mike, that, their DVO, so, people are saying don't overlook their defense. Their defense is actually one of the worst parts of their team. They've struggled in stretches, especially against good quarterbacks. They're actually, like I've mentioned, 17th DVOA. It's their offense that's third. You watch the game most recently on Sunday night, you would have thought, maybe the defense was keeping them around, but it really wasn't. It was, their offense was struggling, but that's what's been good this season for Miami. It's been a good offense. They have 2 good receivers. They say having a good receiver 1 and a receiver 2 is really important. As you've seen the Bills try to focus on it. Is it Gabriel Davis? Is it getting something out of McKenzie? Is Shakir going to pop his head up? Is it OBJ? Is it John Brown out of nowhere? Is it Cole Beasley out of nowhere? they've been kind of mixing and matching, trying to figure out how to put this receiving core together. Miami has it. They don't have anything behind it. They have a little bit of, Cedric Wilson occasionally, Trent Sherfield occasionally, River Craycraft. They have some names, but really it's a two-man show.
And
one of them
are 3 and 4 in DVOA as wide receivers. Diggs number 2. So you're right. As Hill and Waddle go, the rest of the Dolphins go. I did want to get to this really quick, Kevin. Are you underestimating the Miami Dolphins?
I mean, I'm not, because they beat us. They had some things go right. The Bills had some backups in. The Bills still should have won that game. I thought, Tua was okay in that game. He was decent. He had some throws against, once again, one of the weakest parts of the Bills defense for many weeks was Jaquan Johnson. And they took advantage of that. Jordan Poyer plays that might have been the difference alone in that individual matchup. But the offense wasn't really the issue. The Dolphins offense wasn't the issue per se in that game. With a few lapses on defense, but the Bills offense, you had Diggs on his knees at the end of the game. He's not in crunch time. He's not in the game in crunch time. That's almost essentially.
How many times did the Bills lose that game out of 10? Twice?
2 out of 10. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because that's how I feel. They needed everything to go wrong. Josh Allen had a fumble inside the red zone, led to points. Miami converted a 3rd and long, led to points. Miami capitalized on every opportunity they had in the red zone. The Bills, they went out on downs on a 4th and goal late in the game. They couldn't convert with a minute and a half left and get a scoring drive in that contest. They had 275 plus more yards than the Dolphins. They just weren't efficient when they had their
and their number one receivers out of the game in the
number one wide receiver out of the game. They were dealing with injuries. They were not even close to remotely healthy. You can bring up the heat. I don't want to bring up the heat. I know it does play a factor, but I don't want to get into that conversation today because the snow is going to be a situation that Miami isn't mentally prepared for this Saturday night. So, yes, a lot of things went against the Bills, and they still should have won that game week 3. So am I underestimating the Dolphins? No. Miami can beat the Buffalo Bills, but it is going to require everything going right for the Miami Dolphins. And that is why I'm saying this weather has the potential to hurt them more because their game is based on that timing. The Bills offense is very successful in yardage and scoring in so many different aspects, even rushing yards and consistent rushing yards because Josh Allen is such a big contributor to their run game. But you know what the Bills offense isn't predicated on this year? Timing. A lot of it is you get open, I whip the ball to you, you catch it, you get the first down. The Bills offense could actually get much better. They did not utilize the middle of the field against the New York Jets when that's been the Jets' biggest weakness this year against the pass game. So am I worried about the conditions on Saturday night? No, because I think in the end, the conditions are going to hurt Miami because of what they bring to the table. Now, if Miami was a team that could pound the rock, run for 5.5 yards per carry, similar to what the Colts did last year, similar to what the Patriots did last year, or the Titans, yeah, I'd be a little bit nervous because their strength wouldn't be as limited as our strength. But in this situation, this weather is going to impact Miami's strength more than it will impact the Bills' strength. And I have faith in the Bills' defense ability to step up, especially with how they're playing without Von Miller the last 2 weeks, more than I have the Miami Dolphins defense. Miami capitalizes off of being very aggressive and blitzing. That means there's going to be opportunities to get past them. Yes, it hurt the first game of the season when the Bills were missing 3 starters on their offensive line. But if the Bills get any protection at all, there's going to be opportunities to beat these Dolphins corners and make plays, assuming the weather isn't catastrophically bad.
They were playing Tommy Doyle at guard.
There was 3 injuries. That game had so many random things happen. It's really hard to take too much from it. Vegas doesn't give a team a 7.5-point favorite because they're just trying to be nice in home field advantage. Vegas truly believes the Bills are a much better team than Miami. And there's I forget the Twitter account. There's an account that goes off of the Vegas lines and how much better you are from the average team on a weekly basis. And the Bills are about 8-point spread better than the average team in the NFL. Miami, I believe, is around 3. So Vegas is saying the Bills deserve to be favored by quite a bit in this game, and that's why they are.
Yeah. And their offensive line has had its issues too. Like we saw some issues in New York. You're going to see some issues this week too. They had to go off the street and sign Eric Fisher. Yes, the Bills just did it with Cole Beasley, but not at their left tackle or right tackle spot. And so we're going to see if we see Eric Fisher. We did not see him yet to date. We've seen a mishmash. Terran Armstead's played injured the entire year, and he still plays fairly well at it. Outside of that, you've had historically bad Greg Little, one of the worst offensive tackles in the league, one of the worst pass blockers by all metrics. Then you have Brandon Shell, who hasn't been much better, but he is a little bit better against the run blocking. You have Liam Eichenberg in and out of the lineup for the Dolphins. Robert Hunt's been good. He's been a pretty, one of their better parts. Connor Williams converted to center from guard. He's been good for the most part this year. Robert Jones has not been good. So, there's some issues there, and they are not deep to the point where, once again, they were looking for retirees to play on their offense along their offensive line. So, they've lost Austin Jackson for the year. And Liam Eichenberg is still on IR. So we'll see how that looks going forward at the offensive line spot, but it's been a mishmash. It's not been great. They've been using a lot of Durham Smythe in situations, run blocking. And they like that tight end play there from him. Mike Gesicki hasn't been really involved as he could be. So there's just, the offense does run through two receivers. One of them is officially banged up. Will Tyreek Hill play? Sure. I expect Tyreek Hill to play, especially in this game. If it was a different game and a different atmosphere at a different time of the year, maybe they rest him. But it's not going to be this week. He's got a bum ankle. He couldn't finish the game on a short week going to Buffalo in the cold. It's going to swell up. I'm not 100% sure, but if he plays, he's going to be banged up. And at least if it knocks his trademark speed, that's enough to really set the edge over there. And it's just no running game, as you've already mentioned. Jeff Wilson went out with an injury as well. Will he be able to go? They already traded Edmonds to. They've already traded him earlier this season as well, so he's out off the roster and now on IR. Now you're looking at really Raheem Mostert as their only running back on the roster, with Savion Ahmed and Myles Gaskin, who neither have more than 30 or 40 snaps this season. So there's definitely some issues on the Dolphins offense at full strength, even with a mediocre to bad offensive line. It's a good offense, as DVOA will point to. They mainly can dominate in the passing game, but you've already said it right now. It's going to affect their passing game more than anything. They're not prepared for this. They're using heaters in LA with a basically covered stadium. Yes, wind still gets in there in that stadium. They do have a covered roof in that glass LA arena there. It's a strange design, but it works over there. So I just don't quite see where the Dolphins win right now on offense, especially with some banged up injuries to their running back one and Jeff Wilson, receiver one and Tyreek Hill, and Tua's definitely.
Tua is a good quarterback. He
wasn't good last weekend.
Yeah. He struggled last weekend, and he struggled
because he's hurt. He's hurt. He has an ankle injury, and
that's making an impact. But he's also playing better defenses. The Dolphins capitalize on a lot of weaker defenses. They ran the scores up. They had explosive plays with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The last 2 weeks, you played a not a really super strong Chargers defense, but a Chargers defense that had a great scheme for what the Dolphins offense came with. And they didn't have an answer. They didn't know how to substitute it. Check some of the Twitter breakdowns of the film for what the Chargers were doing in their secondary against the Dolphins' main two receivers. They were getting to the line, forcing Tyreek Hill to adapt his routes. And then with their leverage, they were basically saying, if you want to go outside, go outside. Try to get those long completions where Tua has to put a lot of air under the ball. We bet that he's not going to make those throws. And so basically the Chargers took away the middle, which forced Tua to adapt his style. And then when McDaniel tried to adjust and have routes geared to the outside that they could take advantage of, Tua didn't release the ball. He held on to it. He ran a few times. Yes, he got some yards, but why didn't he make those throws? Because he didn't have the confidence to make those throws, because those aren't the bread and butter of the Miami Dolphins offense. Yes, they're capable of explosive plays. But the one thing is, this Bills defense is truly elite. With or without Von Miller, they're elite. Greg Rousseau now has 7 sacks on the season. I believe 10 games, 11 games, somewhere around that. Von Miller had one more sack in basically the same amount of time. Greg Rousseau is getting to the quarterback. AJ Epineza, not incredible, but 5.5 sacks. You're seeing the interior line the last couple of weeks just take care of business. Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver, they are destroying people. And as a result, when Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds are healthy, they are making plays all over the field. You add in a healthy Tre'Davious White, who played 100% of the snaps, defensive snaps last week against the Jets. You have Jordan Poyer, who looks solid in the secondary. This defense is coming to play. And I really feel really confident about the Bills defense going forward. Can Miami score? Can they get some nice quick drives? Yes, they will. But in this contest, I feel like I said, irrationally confident about the Bills. That doesn't mean that Miami can't win. Miami can definitely win this contest and get within a game of the Bills. I'm just not picking it because of you factor in all the situations, the Bills offense, their defense, how they match up, them being healthier than the last matchup, the fact that they outplayed them the last matchup and barely lost despite a bunch of things going against them. I just think it all adds up to a Bills win, and I'll even say this: I'm thinking it's going to be double digits.
It has the makings to be there. Now the question is, let's staying on the Dolphins offense for a second here, and we'll switch to this other side of the ball here in a moment. It sticks to disrupting the receivers at the line of scrimmage. Who did you draft to do this? Who came out to be able to do this? It's Kaiir Elam. Yeah. I mean, will he play? That's the biggest question. I've said this, and not quite literally, but if he doesn't play this week, what scheme will he play in? When will you feel comfortable going to him? If it's not going to be, if you're always going to play Dane Jackson and or Xavier Rhodes, when would you ever play? And then you're going to get Benford back in, already, a couple weeks. When would you ever play Kaiir Elam anymore? I mean, you had Frazier basically said we were trying to get him some snaps. Didn't happen. If you're trying, you would have gotten him in the game. I just don't think you trusted his tackling. But you had your entire team was missing tackles. Maybe you didn't want to exacerbate the issue with more missed tackles with Kaiir Elam. But quite frankly, you didn't trust him to play in that game plan. Now you fast forward to this week in a press man situation against receivers that might be either hampered by injury or in situations to where the snow might slow them down. The benefit will go to the offense in snow, not rain, sleet. Obviously, that goes to the defense, but the snow, where you're going to cut, and the defense doesn't. So it does go to benefit to you in most situations where there's any type of snow accumulation. Now, in a situation where there's no accumulation, that's a little bit different. But
the wind being a factor too, though, can negate some of that. If it is, depending on the actual wind gusts, if it's 10 miles per hour, it shouldn't make too much of an impact. If it does get windier during the elements, that can make a little bit of a factor on the game.
And it points to as one of his biggest weaknesses coming out now. Then recently is he wasn't able to make those out route throws. That's why teams were baiting him to throw in the middle of the field, like you saw from the Chargers. It will only cause a further issue in any type of elements, whether it's a wet, snowy ball or, I don't know from Alabama. I don't know how much he's played in this, Mike. I really can't point to too many situations. In his career.
He had the game against the Bills where he had a chance to get a playoff appearance for the Dolphins his rookie year, and the Bills won by 30, I think, that game. So I don't know how cold it was that day, but that's probably one of the colder games he's played. When you play your college football at Alabama, you come from, I believe he was, grew up in Hawaii.
Yep.
There's a reasonable chance that he really hasn't played too many games in sub-freezing weather. Maybe a few games here and there in New England or the Jets. I would have to go back and check the Dolphins schedule, but I would guess not too many. And some people, it has a bigger impact than others. Some people, it doesn't really bother them too much. I just know it against you add the weather and the type of defense the Bills play, how they're normally good against other teams' passing attacks, limiting them. It just spells a lot of trouble. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy for the Bills offense to coast over Miami either, but I do think weather could play an impact on this game. And we'll see. I know a lot of people are scared about Dane Jackson against whoever he lines up against. But we were talking in the Cover One chat, even though other teams do exploit Dane, and he's had some rough stretches in the middle of the season, Dane does grade out average when you compare him to his peers. He's not this horrendous player that Bills Mafia has made him out to be. He's not great. He's suspect at times. He does get exploited, but he's basically the definition of average at this point. So I do think some of the talk is a little bit overkill, but we'll of course hear it again if he does have a weekday and allow Waddle, Hill, or whoever he matches up against to go off.
It'll be unfortunate because, Bills fans, and rightfully so, and I'll be in this category, I know I will want to get rid of, why is he on the field? It was the most obvious situation ever that Dane Jackson might not be the best fit in this specific game over other games. So, it'll be a pretty easy, we knew this was going to happen, but, as we see here, the team played a lot of man the first time they played, and it seemingly worked outside of one Jaquan Johnson play, where he got beat over the top with Damar Hamlin by Jalen Waddle, as well as in the end zone. I think Poyer makes both of those plays. And then the passing game would have been really limited. The Bills feel pretty comfortable in this situation. And thank you, Sarah, so much for this fact that I didn't know. To our point, Tua is 0-4 in 40-degree weather, 2 versus Buffalo. So, there's something to that at some point. There's something to the ability to struggle in situations where the weather's bad. And like you said, some quarterbacks are good, but I think the quarterbacks that are good are the ones that play in it more, though. I don't think anyone's good playing in it 4 times in their career. I just don't really see that much. It's possible if they had a ton of college experience or maybe even high school or something, but I just don't see situations to where a quarterback just goes and is good in weather that has never done it. But it's just so hard. Like even Josh Allen, it does take some learning and some knowing what maybe plays work, what don't. It's not going to just come naturally to play in a wet, snowy, windy, cold environment with, DBs doing different things and receivers, getting their footing. It's going to be a struggle if the Bills can take away the middle of the field on Saturday and late at night. It's going to be a raucous crowd. Short week, Mike. That's underrated. We haven't talked about that. 6 days. They're going to need to travel on Friday. Very awkward day to travel, especially on a long West Coast trip. There's definitely going to be some things in this game working against the Dolphins that did work against the Bills in week 3.
And the wind is something where, the snow, as you mentioned, the snow isn't the biggest concern. The temperature isn't the biggest concern. We've seen Josh Allen in sub-freezing temperatures go 7 for 7 in touchdown drives against the Patriots in the playoffs last year. So it depends on what type of weather event we see on Saturday. Is it going to be 2 inches of snow per hour? Is it going to be windy conditions? Or is it just going to be cold? Depending on what we see, that'll have a huge impact on what type of game is out there. Because the biggest advantage really for Buffalo when you're talking about conditions is when it's strong winds. I'm talking like the 20, 25 mile per hour winds, because an average arm quarterback like Tua will just not be able to get the ball with precision where he needs in timing. While we've seen the Bills in those windy games against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. Sure, they struggled to score, but they were still able to attempt passes, still able to have part of that in their offense. The same thing against Baltimore in the playoffs, where they came out passing the entire first half. So the Bills have shown in bad weather, they are still willing to be aggressive in themselves. A lot of their opponents go away from what they want to do in those conditions. So if you can make a team one-dimensional while still having a little bit of your offense, that's a net positive on your end. Even though you're limited, if the other team is limited more, you're still gaining an advantage in that situation. So we'll see. It's too early to know what it's going to be like Saturday night, but I do have confidence with the Bills, especially if there's any way they can make Miami run the ball more than what they want. I think that's gonna work out for the Bills.
And yeah, Matt Milano's already kind of got to his number in a way where they're going to continue to be aggressive when these linebackers play, and when Poyer's in the game with these linebackers, the middle of the field's pretty short up. Yes, you see broken tackles. We've seen him pop its head up across the last couple of games, really. So that will, hopefully get fixed at some point. The run defense has been sound. Like the biggest difference on the Bills defense as we transition from the defense is their ability to stop the run, in my opinion. Their pass defense has always been good. And it's still pretty good. It's been better. They've had Micah Hyde. They've had a full strength Trey for longer. I mean, even Leslie Frazier said today that would like some plays back. I'm not exactly sure. He got beat early in the game on that 3rd and long to Garrett Wilson that I think he should have made a better play on. But it wasn't like anything crazy. And then, some plays defensively in the defensive backfield. Taron Johnson's missed some plays too. He was really good.
Been poor this year. That's one thing that is holding the Bills back. Like their tackling has been horrendous. You want to hear something interesting? So DVOA, Bills, I believe, are number 4 offense, number 4 defense. I believe that's correct. Last time I checked, number 2 overall. So DVOA has the Bills rush defense, I believe, at number 3.
It's been good.
We talk about how we're sometimes wondering what the heck is Pro Football Focus smoking. You want to hear some grades here, and you're going to be shaking your head when you hear these. So overall grades, the Bills had the 11th graded team for all of the units combined.
Okay.
By Pro Football Focus. 10-3, second best record in the NFL, but the number 11 grade. You look at offense. We know the Bills have decent offense. DVOA agrees with it. The yards per game, total points, we know those aren't the best indicators, but the Bills are high in all those categories. Pro Football Focus has the Bills with the number 14, 14th graded offense. And then if you go to defense, Pro Football Focus has the Bills with the number 16th ranked defense. So somehow the Bills are number 4 in DVOA in offense and defense. They're number 2 overall in team DVOA, 0.1 behind Philadelphia. Yet Pro Football Focus has the Bills as the 11th graded team with a defense that's 16th and an offense that I believe I just said 14th. And their tackling grade is a 30.8. They have their run defense at 50.4. I'm just starting to wonder, like, do the people at Pro Football Focus, do they even watch the games? Like,
I think they're only watching individual players, and they don't
how bad are you at your job where you see a team that's 10-3, that the deeper analytics and metrics are all super high on, but your eye test says that they're not even a top 10, top tier team in the NFL. I swear, I know we always talk about Pro Football Focus and we're critical of them, and now it's easier to be critical of them because they just laid off half their staff. But what drugs are those people on? You can't even – I know some of their things are useful to NFL teams and some of their deeper things are helpful, but Jesus Christ, sorry, but some of that stuff is just garbage.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And I think it's a total and so I think they're just looking at individual players and they have no idea how that adds up to a team score at the end. It kind of just equals a team score. And then they're like, ooh, that doesn't really make sense. Maybe the team defense was better on that specific play, but our individual grades, we got to keep them like where we think they are. They don't really do anything that adjusts for skill or for how the team is actually playing. It's just like, I think this guy missed a tackle, therefore -3 or -1 or their random metric score that they have. So it's
every
just
metric has outliers. Like DVOA is really low on the Minnesota Vikings, even though they're 10-3. But you can even convince yourself like there's reasons why DVOA is low on the Vikings. They've won a lot of one-score games. I think they were 9-0 in one-score games entering this past weekend. So a lot of those games, you could make an argument maybe Minnesota's closer to a 7-5 team than they are a 10-3 team. But when it's a thing like Pro Football Focus and they're going against the metrics, they're going against the deeper numbers, then I think your eye test is maybe a little bit flawed.
Right. And there's going to be, in this specific matchup, I think the Bills have a really good gauge on what they need to do from the first game. They played pretty well with backups, just straight up, no excuses, but they did. They played well for backups. Everyone's going to say, well, Tua didn't have the ball all game, so of course they played good. Well, I don't even, okay. They still played good for the majority of the day. And I'd like to see a more man situation. I'd like to see Tua think a little bit, and he's going to have the challenge of needing to play in this weather that he's never been able to beat yet in his NFL career. 0-4 in these situations, and under 40. I mean, this is going to be one of his worst games ever, maybe in his career. So we're going to see what he's able to do. In some situations, I agree. When you're playing like the Jets or something, it does not really always benefit you. It's always different. Like, sure, there are some games, and I feel like this is one of them that will benefit you as a team. Others, like the Jets, the Colts last year, the Eagles a few years ago, it doesn't benefit you ever. It doesn't benefit you in those situations. Sometimes it can work against you, depending on the game and the game management. If the other team has a good defense, a really good defense, that'll hurt you because now you're not moving the ball. And you're going to struggle to make a difference with this weather. So
it's all situational.
Right.
Every matchup makes a difference. So yes, some games the weather is going to be to your favor. Then there's going to be other games where the weather is to your detriment. So this is a game, I believe it's to their favor. Against the Jets, I would hate this weather because I don't want to be playing a low-scoring game with the Jets because I know they have the ability to slow us down enough to get that touchdown and win a 14-10 ball game. While I don't believe the Miami Dolphins can slow the Bills down enough to keep up if the Bills are finding ways to score points. And I do want to address that one question. Have the Bills been playing like a top 10 offense the past 6 weeks? Well, obviously against the Jets, they didn't. But the Jets are a tremendous defense. I would make an argument that top to bottom, the Jets are becoming one of the elite defenses in the NFL. When you have Quinnen Williams, when you have Sauce Gardner, the guys that they have all over the ball, they've been shutting down people all year. I have extremely high confidence in that Jets unit. But I do think the Bills are still playing as a top 10 offense in recent times, despite them having their struggles. Against the Patriots, they decided to have a different approach on offense. They had long, sustained drives. They went out trying to run the ball. They were not trying to pass all over, and they were effective. They took care of business. Against the Lions, they were up and down, but they found the way to get it done when it mattered. They still had, I believe, 400 yards. Against Cleveland, horrible first quarter, horrible start to the second quarter. From the mid-second quarter to the fourth quarter, they were moving the ball at ease. They were getting what they wanted. They didn't always get touchdowns, but they were moving the ball. This Bills offense has had struggles. Even the Minnesota game, they were moving the ball at ease for a good amount of that game and then just fell apart and slowed down. So, yes, I do think they're still playing as a top 10 offense. I think what is difficult and tough for fans to accept when watching this Bills offense compared to previous years is that the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, is not scheming up easy plays. So nothing is coming easy for this offense. You're not seeing guys wide open getting simple first downs like we saw in previous years with Brian Dable. We're also overly reliant on Josh Allen having to play hero ball at times. The offensive line is not protecting at a high rate. They're not effective rushing the ball outside of Allen runs against the majority of opponents. You'll have games against New England where they were effective on the ground. And right now they're missing a legitimate 3 and 4 wide receiver. So they're overly reliant on forcing the ball to Diggs. And Gabe Davis, he'll have games here and there. But Isaiah McKenzie, he's a man beater. He can beat man coverage. He's a speedster, but he's a straight line speed guy. So you'll have crossers, you'll have some routes downfield, but he's not going to be what Cole Beasley can be, where he finds a soft spot in the zone. That's what Jamison Crowder was supposed to do. He gets hurt. Now there's no depth. So you're talking about an offense that's being limited by an offensive coordinator that doesn't have the personnel at wide receiver number 3 and 4, isn't utilizing their tight end that they're paying big money to, isn't giving their quarterback time to throw, and yet they're still the number 4 DVOA offense in the league, one of the top scoring offenses in the league, one of the top yardage offenses in the league. So yeah, if they can find a way to get things going, if there are already all these metrics in spite of that, I think they're going to be okay when it matters. And now you add Cole Beasley, who I do want to talk a little bit about when we can get to it later in the show. If he is even 85% of what he was last year,
yeah,
and he knows the offense, that can help, can definitely help going forward.
And I do believe they had a good thing going against the Patriots. Josh Allen didn't need to do too much. The Bills ran it down their throats. I think the game plan was great against New England. We'll see that later in the year, definitely in times here with some of these matchups. I don't know if it's going to be Miami specifically. The Miami defense's best part of their team is their defensive line by far. I mean, the receiving core obviously is one, and then the defensive line's the other. Those are easily their two best features, and now they obviously went out and traded their first round pick. Don't have many picks left for Chubb to rush the passer. Jalen Phillips has been really good. So Christian Wilkins is good on the interior, Melvin Ingram. So I mean, they have definitely some names there that everybody knows. And it is a really good Andrew Van Ginkel has been pretty good for them as well. The interior is not as strong, but still, when you have a guy like Christian Wilkins, it doesn't really matter who's next to him. Emmanuel Ogbah is on IR, but John Jenkins has been good enough for them. Raekwon Davis has struggled, but whatever. And really Zach Seiler has taken over that position and been pretty good for the roster as well. So it is a really good defense in terms of their front seven. Their secondary is a mess. Now that's where I thought they'd be strong. Their secondary is absolutely a mess to me, in my opinion, especially without Jones. He's been on IR. It's a long shot to play this year. Xavier Howard's not been his usual self. He's been good against the run. He's been pretty bad elsewhere in these games. Keon Crosen's played a lot. He struggled. Nick Needham's on IR. He wasn't the best to begin with. They're going to a rookie in Kadir Kahu. He's been, okay at times in the slot. He's been one of their better players, actually. They're on their fifth safety now with Brandon Jones being out, as well as, Eric Rowe went out in this game. He's not expected to play, as well as Elijah Campbell's in a concussion protocol. So they're literally going to play, Vern McKinley at safety with Javon Holland. So there's some issues there across their secondary for sure. Jerome Baker's a pretty good linebacker, but outside of that, I don't have too many issues with their back seven. Their front is good again. So the Bills will play a good front here in Miami for sure. And is it enough to get down Josh Allen? We'll see. I like to think there's possibility that the weather could neutralize some of the cuts and the stunts that the defensive line is going to be able to do with their footing. But we'll have to see how the elements actually play a role into their pass rushing ability and what the Dolphins are able to do as they get after the passer at a pretty high clip. They're one of the best teams in the league. At them in New England, actually.
So what impacts the Bills more in this game offensively? Is it going to be the weather, or is it going to be what Miami brings to the table? Because having watched Miami the first time around with their ability to get to Josh, and then watching Miami this past week against the Chargers, if I'm the Bills, I'm thinking get a lot of short passes, short, quick looks, get the ball out of Josh Allen's hand. I don't know if you think that should be part of the strategy, but you saw Herbert on Sunday night. He was completing a ton of passes. He was getting it out quick. They were trying to get him on the move to avoid the pressure, rolling him out. Could be a strategy to play for the Bills this weekend a little bit. If Beasley is active in this game, hopefully completely ready to go, I don't want to say that I have high expectations for him, but I do think if you just look at what his skill set is, he should be able to help the Bills out in this contest.
Yeah, I by all counts, he came in ready to go. He came in day one ready to play snaps. I don't believe the Bills will bring him in until he's ready. By all accounts of what I've heard, that they bring in a player based on when they're ready to play, not necessarily when they can come into the organization and kind of take some time to get back. Different than an ACL rehab by Trey White. It's a situation to where they like to generally sign and use a roster spot, practice squad spot, whatever it may be, when the player's ready to go and in good shape. And they've kept in touch. And he came in, obviously everything went well and is expected to play. We'll see how much. John Brown only got 3 snaps last week, but that was game flow. That was weather. That could have been a multitude of things.
You consider them the same situation though? Because I don't.
No.
I feel like John Brown was brought in purely to be a practice squad elevation because Tanner Gentry had run out of his max call-ups. I don't think that's the case with Cole. I really do think they're bringing Cole in because they know they have a need at wide receiver number 3. I don't know if this week you're going to see a ton of him, but I really do think come playoff time, Cole Beasley is going to be that third option at wide receiver. And then you can have McKenzie be more of a 4. Maybe they split snaps overall, because what has Josh been missing the most this year? To me, it's that safety valve where third and 5, he can just get the ball out, target him. I don't need Cole Beasley to have 5 million yards a game. If he can give me 3-4 catches, 30, 35 yards, and get a first down, a couple first downs, that's what I am hoping for Cole, because that in the middle of the field has just not been utilized. And I think that can also open things up for Dawson Knox a little bit. I did see something where the Bills need him in for blocking. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe I read somewhere that Knox's blocking rate, I think it's similar to what it was last year. They just haven't been targeting him at the same volume that it has been in the past. And I don't know if that's part of Dorsey's scheme or if that's Allen not getting to him on his progressions. But I do think ultimately what the Bills would love to have is this offense start to get more balance overall, to where, not saying they want to be a run first team, but heading into the playoffs where they can feel more confident running the ball when they feel like they need to, and being able to dump it off to Cole Beasley on those third and shorts, and then hopefully opening things up for their bigger target receivers and Davis and Diggs and Knox. So I do think they're trying to build to something. They're not there yet, but they're hoping they can use these last couple of weeks to get to that point.
And I really think that there is a game script for Cole Beasley in this situation. I do think, like we mentioned, I don't believe their defensive backs are great. I think quick passes, I think Cole improvising, I think getting open on third downs. You don't go, it's not random that the Bills had their worst third down output of the year in a situation to where they needed to have it in a lot of the game, and they weren't able to succeed. Only converted 2 first downs against the Jets on third down. That's not going to get it done. And now all of a sudden they're bringing in, Cole Beasley to get this done. So I don't think that that's random. I think that the timing was right, both with Cole being ready, his mindset being ready, him being physically ready, and the team being ready for him too. 3 call-ups, which is, there's only 4 games left, so they don't really need to put him on the active roster until the Patriots game.
If they even want to at that point.
Because they reset. Right.
Yeah.
So will they scratch him one of these games? They will have to if they want to play him in all 4 games, though, Mike. So there is a little bit of a pickle on
who do you bring down to elevate Cole would be the question.
Oh, it would be Brandon Bryant, because Phillips would be ready at defensive tackle.
Fair, yeah.
So, you only have 4 active receivers. Team started with 6. So there are roster spots that are available at the receiver position. You would have to eliminate, first off, Brandon Bryant for a week. I think it could be done. So, especially if he gets going here in these 3 games, they're going to have to elevate him. Like, you're not going to then go unless they don't need him against the Patriots for some reason.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee they'll need him at that point. If Kansas City drops a game before then, you take care of business against Cincinnati, you could be in a situation where theoretically you could have it wrapped up going into the last game of the season. Obviously not likely, but certainly a possibility. One thing I am interested with Cole Beasley is, how long have the Bills had interest? How long have they been talking for? And is this something that just came together quickly, or was this something that they have been planning for a while? Obviously, Bills have been tied to OBJ all season. We speculated, based on what we were hearing, that he was going to come back late November or early December, obviously an early return, but that's what was out there. Now, as it comes out, he doesn't even expect to play until the playoffs at the earliest. You wonder, how long have the Bills known of this time frame, and did they target Cole Beasley as their next option? We've heard rumblings that ever since Isaiah McKenzie reached out to Cole and tagged him on Twitter, that the Bills might have had a line of communication, whether that be, was it the general manager, Brandon Beane, talking to him, or was it Cole talking to other Bills players to letting them know, I'm open to coming back if the situation works itself out? Did Cole reach out? Did the Bills reach out? To me, when I hear the report that Josh Allen played a big role in this, I truly do believe it. I think Josh looks at this offense and realizes there are limitations, and that a guy like Cole could be a potential answer to those. Obviously, if Odell Beckham Jr. was healthy and you could grab him, maybe he's the priority. But if Cole was the plan B, I do give credit to the Bills organization and for him for being able to move past the drama of the past year and being able to make this work. Because I know it seems like a small thing, stupid little arguments about posts on Twitter and being outspoken.
Yep.
But that does show some emotional maturity on both sides to make this happen. Because outside of how things ended, Cole's tenure in Buffalo really was very productive, and he was beloved by fans before everything went down. I don't even truly blame him for all of it. I do think it was a tense climate across the country where, unfortunately, he felt that his speech was being repressed. I don't agree with that, but I understand his point of view. And now that that climate is kind of relaxed, I do think it's the right time to move on, get back to the field. In that locker room, you can tell they love him as a player. That locker room, I don't think, was ever impacted. If anything, I think it was possibly McDermott and Bean wanting him to get vaxxed in the past, not because it goes against what Beasley wanted to do, but potentially because it gives them a competitive advantage compared to the lifestyle and things that unvaxxed players had to go through last year. Not to get in that discussion again, but the stuff that happened, I believe you just sweep it under the rug, you acknowledge it happened, and then you just move on from it.
And none of it was too bad. It was just two people, having just different opinions. And that's okay in a way, if that's what you want to do. And he always was on the thinking that he was sticking up for players that didn't have a voice. He always would say that, like, it isn't just me, it's the players that also feel this way, who've told me this, Cole, in private, and have these beliefs. That's always why he said he was sticking up for them. So anyways, as you look at Cole, the player, I think there is a role here this weekend on third down. I 100% think that. John Brown only has one call up. I don't think you'll see him activated to the regular roster. They'll let him stay there till postseason if you need him. If something drastically changes, maybe he gets elevated to the roster. I don't see anything. I see them holding him now. I don't believe they're going to call up two. That means they're going to make two receivers. They're going to need to make someone else inactive. At some point, this team loves their special teams, and it's finally a really good special teams. It's finally DVOA top 3. Fine, use the roster spots now. When you're good, I'm fine with you using special teams roster spots. When you're not, I do not want you taking up roster spots on my offense because you need the 28th rated coverage unit. Not the case right now. Smiley's unit's playing really good outside of a blocked punt this weekend. And a few small blunders here and there. The special teams unit has been really good here. And as I tweeted right before the blocked punt, really more about the return units, that the real biggest difference isn't in the running game. It's what Nyheim Hines has been able to do for the special teams and the return game, making it dangerous. So I do believe that was a huge upgrade for the team to be able to get that done, Mike. So special teams has been great. And we need to get into score predictions. We have Eric Turner coming on here very shortly with his guests. He's going to have a great action-packed show, coming on here shortly. So, the Going Deep podcast is going to keep it a little bit shorter today than we normal 90-minute segment. We'll get into next week for sure to recap this game and to talk about the Bears Christmas Eve game. So, we'll get into a lot of stuff. We'll have a recap. Going to have the Bears guest, have someone really good coming in from the Bears to talk for a little bit, and we'll be able to continue the playoff, more or less the seeding discussion, Mike, that I want to have next week as well, because this week really does paints a picture on really talking about seeding. Once this week is complete, we can start to get into it more next week. So really action-packed show next week. Please make sure to tune in. Everybody watching, please smash that like button. It means so much to us. Anyone listening on demand on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really appreciate you as well. I want to do a Christmas giveaway next week. I'm going to give away a signed autographed photo right here from the Going Deep podcast for a holiday Christmas giveaway next show. So tune in next at 7:00, and also retweet my giveaway for both The Band Is Back Together with John Brown as well as Cole Beasley signed photos. Mike, it is score prediction time. What's going on? What are you feeling? Let's get it on record right now for you.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm irrationally confident this week. I've said that 4 or 5 times already tonight. I feel good. I feel like the Bills offense is going to take advantage of this Dolphins defense. Miami likes to be aggressive. I think that's going to play into their hands. I look for Cole to have a solid debut. Nothing special, but I do think the Bills are going to be able to have a solid night. It's really hard to make a score prediction without knowing what the weather truly is going to be. As long as it's not somewhat crazy, I'm going to have the Bills. I'll go 30-20. If the weather's bad, I'll lower that to 24-14. But right now, I'm going to go 30-20. Thank you, JW, for the super chat. Go Bills. I like their odds of getting a 3-game lead in the division and basically wrapping it up.
And Mike got them on a 5-game winning streak. Really good. Will they complete the 8 games needed most likely for the 1 seed? Definitely going to need 7-1. They'll most likely need that 8th game. Kansas City played some pretty poor football and still is able to beat the Denver team if they play again. I don't know that you're going to get it done not winning out anymore, but we'll get into that next week. Thank you so much, JW. Really appreciate you tuning in. Go Bills for sure. Kevin's score prediction. I don't generally predict blowouts, especially in division games. I do think the weather might slow down the offenses a little bit at times, but not this week. I don't think that Tua is going to be able to come into Buffalo and get it done in this specific situation. Could he catch us week 3 next year in Buffalo? Maybe. I don't know. There's this possibility. The team is good enough. He is good enough to he has shown that he is a very decent and capable quarterback. I just think in this specific game where the Bills can basically win the division and focus on the playoffs and their seeding, this is one of those big Sunday night football games that you see like they did against the Steelers a couple of years ago, or that you see, just them really taking advantage in the last final, like you saw against New England last year when they needed to have it, when they lost the first matchup. Similar guys in this game. I think the Bills take care of business and get it done 34-17. So I do think that there is going to be some scoring in this game. I do think that maybe even similar to what you saw with the Chargers game. I don't like their defensive backfield very much. And I do think the Bills have a good opportunity to get right in this game. So it's going to be interesting how it all plays out. And if the weather gets really, really bad, I'm going to have to alter my score prediction. But as of right now, under 8 inches of snow.
Yeah, we'll get a backup prediction in if the weather forecast does change.
We got to, because it did affect the game. 10 punts, the most in a game in 7 years, Mike. So
Kev,
it did matter. It did matter.
And before we do go, we do have one last special message from Greg Thompson about our primary Cover One sponsor, Bet US. So we're just going to play this quick, and then we'll wrap up after Greg Thompson speaks.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with Bet US. Bet US has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between 2 exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500, or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. Bet US, where the game begins.
What a great message there by Greg. Bet US, one of my favorite sponsors. It's a really great site. Get out there, give it a try. And really appreciate everybody tuning into this episode of the Going Deep podcast. We're going to have amazing content still to come with Eric Turner and his team and his special guests coming up right here. Stay tuned right here on the Cover One Podcast Network. 31-10, good guys. Michael, I'm feeling you. I wasn't too far away. Mike wasn't either. Feeling good. I don't generally predict division blowouts, as I've already stated, but we may get one, in my opinion, in some conditions that the Dolphins are not used to. And the Bills being fairly healthy, Matt Milano, by all accounts, should continue to be playing. We'll see if Ryan Bates is able to go. Back to the injury report real quick. So we'll see if Phillips is also going to be able to go. But I think the team's in a really good spot, and we really appreciate everybody tuning in for this hour of the Going Deep podcast. We'll be back with more of a 90-minute segment next time, next Tuesday, to live giveaway. I'll be announcing the winners of the other signed photos based on my tweet. Go out there and give it a tweet. And as well as some guests, some Christmas talk, maybe Mike's favorite Christmas football moment or something. I don't know. We'll come up with something fun on the Going Deep podcast. Yeah, sure. We'll come up with something for fun on the next edition, the December 20th edition of the Going Deep podcast right here at 7:00. But from Kevin, that's Mike. We'll catch everybody shortly, and stay tuned here for the Cover One Film Room and Eric Turner bringing you some great content right here on the Cover One Network shortly.
Josh Allen looking deep, going deep.
To me, talking about the Bills, what else would you rather be doing?
We're hoping to add a new dimension to the Cover One Network.
Slings it deep downfield, and it's caught inside the 20.
Right now, I just want to talk about this championship level. I've never had a championship caliber team to talk about.
I want to focus more on the storylines each week. What are the big stories going on with the Bills? What are thoughts, commentary? How do these things impact Buffalo?
Deep drop. Deep throw. And it is hauled in for the touchdown.
Allen deep to the end zone and caught for a touchdown. Play action.